some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in the bunker. Purple State Party, representing. Man, we're going no script this time, man. The last one was a disaster. Trying to keep notes and stuff, man. This time I'm just trying to look at that red light. And I'm just going to go off because this kind of week ended up being one of them weeks that really sets me off. You might already know maybe what it is. I don't know. You can guess. But first I want to start with the lighter side of life. People out there, see, I care. I'm not here trying to represent a political party other than the Purple State Party. Maybe a new way of thinking. There's probably people out there who think like me. I don't know. This is just what I want to do. But anyhow, I care. And part of that has to be that you have to share. You can't. Man, you never know what kind of problems people are having. And if you don't put your own out there, then nobody knows that you could possibly be the one to help, Adjusting my mic there, But, nearly 30 years ago, I quit drinking. And kind of quit the hardcore life of drugs that I was doing. I mean, I would fall and get hooked again on certain drugs. And I kicked that. That was a massive part of my life. But during that same time, I met my wife, who we've now been married just almost 1 year apart, because I got sober, and exactly 1 year after getting sober, I got married. So the two dates are the same. And that happened this week. That's super cool. I mean, you can make it. I got an email there, man. I don't know what made me special enough to make it. I know the odds are against you. And also during those dark times, I met one of my good friends, Dion. And Dion was black, and Dion fascinated me because he was very outspoken. And I had always been fascinated by the civil rights struggles. I had stood up against apartheid. I'd taken classes in college, things like that. Because it fascinated me. Lots of things fascinate me. The Roman Empire, World War I, World War II, the American Revolution, battles during World War II that weren't with Americans or English. You name it, the history of Australia. I mean, art, all of that kind of stuff. I'm like a Renaissance man. I love Da Vinci. But, man, getting that insight and getting to live in that world and find out how people really felt from a world that was completely different than my own. I grew up in a white bread society, man. I didn't know nothing about that other side. That's just the way it was. And he taught me something that I'd never forget, because it's one of those different ways of thinking. But, in this society, we have a lot of racism. It goes on. And nobody's saying that everybody needs to love everybody and get along. I mean, it's your independent right to choose who you associate with, who you like, who you disagree with, all of that. It's your right. You have that right. You just can't do anything about it. And that's the rule right there. That's part of what we're going to get to here, is you can't do anything about it. And he was telling me, man, like, he doesn't get as worked up about people when they, for example, use the N-word. Because then he knows, like, that's how that person feels. It's right there. That person has clearly shown you that he does not like you. But by the same token, he's not necessarily in a position to do anything. When celebrities or other people have, made reference to people of all nationalities or creeds and orientations and all that, we know who they are. We see them right there. But the one that really gets you is the really insidious, behind the scenes racism, the little things, the things that you don't quite, somebody from the outside wouldn't notice, And those are the ones that come from people usually in power. People who can affect your life, little signs, little things that put distrust in your mind. That's one of the reasons why we have the problems we have here, because there is a distrust, because there's never been honest conversation. You know, people on both sides think they know what the other side is thinking and believes, man. And that's not always the case, you know. But, you know, this week has been a doozy. You know, when you're the ex-vice president, vice president under Obama, and you're running for president right now, and you tell black people that if they don't vote for you, they ain't black, man, that's just right in your face racism. And it's an insidious behind the scenes stuff. The use of the word ain't, you know, the upper class talking down to the lower class, using language they'll understand. That's the bullshit kind of racism that's out there. Fuck you, Biden. Like, how dare you come from a party that preaches what your party preaches? And I believe me, when it comes to inclusiveness, man, I'm right there. How are you going to preach that and then say shit like that? It's bad enough when people of a nationality tell other people in that community or communities, you know, if you're blank blank, then you're not blank blank. It's bad enough. But when it comes from somebody outside of that group, man, them fighting words, man. That's the kind of stuff that would get you hit on the streets. You know? You don't say that. Like, man. And it seems like some people don't care. But you know who does care? Black people. They care. Because that's the shit they've been fighting against. You know? Here it is. The Democratic Party, who says they're there to help them, and who has never helped them, even under Obama, didn't do very much. I mean, the record is that Trump has done more. That's the reality, man. And when your own people are going to ostracize you for going a certain way, then what are you supposed to do? I mean, we don't stand for that, do we? Do we like it when parents disinherit their kids for coming out gay? Do we accept that? Is that something that we say is okay? No. And yet, that's what a presidential candidate just did. Right there. He just belittled and spoke for, talked down to. Who in the fuck is he to take away somebody's race card to begin with? I mean, what an idiot. Like, that was recorded. And yet, some people in the media are defending it. Some people say it's not so bad. Those are just lies, man. And that's the bigger problem. That's the bigger problem right there. Is that we now have a media that is literally just propaganda. It's just lies and propaganda at this point. They can't defend that. That's wrong. That is, oh man. Somebody's identity is not some sort of rule book. You be individuals. You could have your own thoughts. I like reefer, rifles, and Reagan. See, they don't go together. They don't go together. That's what I've always heard. Oh, how can you, if you believe in gay rights, how can you be a Republican? If you believe in smoking weed, how can you be a Republican? Well, honestly, I just love America. That's my answer to it. One wants to preserve what our forefathers, who I honor them above all others. You know, those are the guys that fought for this country, who, risked their lives to make what we have. And one political party right now seems dead set on just tearing that apart. And quite frankly, attacking things like the Second Amendment, which I think is so vital. So vital. Our founding fathers needed their weapons. Day will come where we might need ours. I mean, some of the stuff that's being proposed right now, and the way people are talking and acting, I mean, Yeah, I do care. I want things to get better for people. I want us to find that middle ground. I want us to solve some of these problems. We can look at 40, 50, 60 years. We can look at 70, 80. We can go back to the birth of our country and we can see where mistakes were made. And we can change them. We can fix those things. But how are we supposed to do that when we have a media that's fighting for one side, that seems hell-bent on doing everything just to win an election, just to keep power? I mean, we understand how scary that is. That's a tyranny. That's what it is. They're supposed to be our servants, and they just want to be our rulers. That's what I'm seeing out of one side. And then that side goes on national television and essentially admits that they don't give a shit about black people because they're just expecting their votes, because if you don't vote that way, you ain't black. Like, I hope at some point that sinks into people's heads that was said. People of all nationalities. You should remember that, because that is how they treat all of the groups they say that they're sworn to protect. Sure, they've for the most part, the liberal progressives have led us to a place where people have civil rights. It's not okay. For the most part, we scorn racism and racist behavior. I don't know what I would do if, I knew that somebody wasn't hired just based on the color of their skin. I know what I've done in instances where people were being racist towards people. I mean, I don't call myself your 18th favorite masked hero because I'm not willing to stand up and do the things that I believe in. So, I've defended people against that kind of crap. But for a guy who's, man, for the last 3 years, man, the media's been trying to convince us that Donald Trump is a racist. I haven't really figured out. I have not figured out where they get that from. Just in their imagination, I suppose. I mean, God, I know. Your boy Kid knows, man. You smoke enough weed, man, you'll come up with some pretty interesting ideas. So, I mean, that was the narrative that they picked, supposedly. And then their own candidate comes out and says it. It makes you wonder, do they even care? Where did my metal straw go? Some guy in Florida was running from the cops with meth, and he dove into a swamp and tried to hold his breath, but he couldn't, and one of the radio hosts said, you could have used your metal straw. That was a Woody show, and there's a guy on there, Greg, and in the early days, man, this is a complete tangent, but I feel like we need a tangent right now. But, I used to listen to K-Rock in the morning, man, Kevin and Bean, until in 1 October, a couple years ago, they fired Ralph Garman, who I liked, and I left. And I suffer from a lot of anxiety. I cannot handle it, being in a car with silence. The only reason I even love 21 Pilots is because of car radio. It's a great song. If you struggle with anxieties, you'll totally relate to it. And, hopefully most people have heard that song. That'd be nice. But, so I had to listen to the Woody show, and, it's not really necessarily comedy based. They're not doing silly skits and phone calls, or they're not doing interviews. So it's kind of a departure. But one thing that stuck with me early on was when Greg went on a rant about, being a Republican and being gay, and how it's not cool that people say that you have to believe this if you believe that. If you're this, you have to believe this, whatever. And for Biden to put it out there like that, man, to me personally, man, this isn't an act. It pisses me off, man. Because, my whole life, man, I've wanted what Martin Luther King Jr. wanted. I wanted us to get to a point where we could hold hands and, all of that. The dream. I believed in the dream, and I ain't seen it. I mean, I've seen some changes, but they're not always good, because part of the change that I've seen is that we can't even laugh about it anymore. We've just become so triggerable that every little thing sets people off, and nobody's afraid. They're just afraid. And that, again, man, see, if we can't trust one another, it's hard to come together. And one thing that I've learned myself, because on here I was hoping to be more funny. I'm naturally pretty funny, I've been told. I crack myself up. Either way, whatever. But, that's how people know that, like, I'm cool about it. That I'm not one of those people who can say one thing and believe something else. Because, I'm humorous about it. And that's an honesty. And I'm an honest person. Man, I don't try, man. I don't try to shake hands any different or talk any different. I talk how I talk, and I shake hands like I shake hands. I'm a goofy white guy, and, people have accepted that. And accepting that, I hear things, and I get to learn things. I'm blessed to learn those things. And one thing I've definitely learned is you don't ever try to pull somebody's race card like that. Try to tell them that they need to act a certain way. I just can't. It's hard for me to move on from that. And when I was hearing Greg's story, the same thing. Like, how do you get shunned by your own community for your views? I mean, I was thinking about it before the show. Reefer rifles and Reagan, and I voted for Reagan, not because I'm still young. I really didn't do it for any party affiliation, because later I'd vote for Bill Clinton, and then he just whatever. But I voted for Reagan because guy before him, Carter, didn't do a good job getting our hostages home from Iran. And I didn't like what I had seen out of him. And I didn't really necessarily judge it by a political party or an affiliation. And I think for a lot of people, that's how it used to be. It wasn't necessarily a party affiliation. It was, who did you think was good for the job? It was more like a job interview than simply trying to win one for the home team. And when we're in that mode, it's very difficult to report the truth. And that's when that insidious background, racism, exploiting races, taking advantage of races and orientations and beliefs and things like that, man, that's some low shit, man. And that's what goes on, especially when we have our backs turned. I mean, I don't know how many people know what the UC system in California just did. I mean, they had a bunch of libs out there. Oh, these state testing for colleges are racially biased. So they go and they do a study. And the study finds that there isn't a bias. It doesn't really matter your group that you come from, racial group or economic group or whatever. The testings, the variances, you can see right there. They're right there. It's over there, But they're still going to get rid of the tests. And you know why? It's not cynical anymore to know the truth or to speak the truth or to just say, hey, this is what it looks like was going on, But think about this for a second, okay? So you get some people into your college who are completely ill-prepared. People who testing probably would have shown that they weren't up to snuff. To use a boomer word, up to snuff. Not quite a boomer, but what the hell. But anyhow, so you get these people from, these different groups, you know, get rid of the testing so these people can get in, not ready for college. They get their college loan. They pay the college, because the head of the UC system makes $500,000 a year. So, we're talking, a lot of scoots, man. A lot of scoots up in there to be made. So these kids, they get in there and they're not ready for it. It's above their head. They can't handle it, whatever. They drop out. They still have the student debt. College still made its money. And now they made room for more. So this test, the SATs and the other one, whatever it is, ACT or something like that, I don't know. But that helps weed people out that might not make the cut. Now, that's just the way life is, Some people are cut out for college. Some people are cut out for some sort of art program, arts, something in the arts. And some people are cut out for a trade school, something that they want to do with their lives. And they go to a trade school. Some people don't. They don't go to any of those schools, man. And it's up to the individual. And in some cases, that individual has certain, handicaps. They're not good at school, whatever. It doesn't stick, whatever it is, And they find something. And that's just the way life is. Not everybody's cut out for college. But everybody is cut out to get a student loan. And they're preying on what they think is minority students. They're preying on them. But they don't care. I mean, it's not, don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going after any particular group. Because they don't give a shit. They don't care. Let's just get them in here like fucking cattle, get their money, get them out, get somebody else in. It's like a frickin' restaurant. But that's the background kind of stuff, man. Where in the name of racial equality, you set up a scam. That's what the Democrats have done. Think about it. They peddle all of these really nice things, make all these kinds of promises, but behind their back, they are talking down about you. They're coming out and they're using those little words. Ain't. Right? Yeah. My funniest moment today, though, was when I was reading an article. It was in the Propaganda LA Times. Man, this stuff's weak ass. But they, they're trying to defend Joe Biden's comments. Trying to say, well, wait a minute. Yeah, it was bad, but he's still better than Trump, who had the best unemployment numbers for blacks ever. You don't even need to say anymore once you have those unemployment numbers. But they're saying, oh no, he's bad. But anyhow, right next to it, on the other side of Yahoo, is an article about Biden apologizing for his comments. Well, the problem is apology is meaningless, man. It's already been said. You can't take it back unless you have a time machine. Can't go back and change it. You said it, man. And I hope people hold you to the fire over it. Because that's some racist bullshit, man. That is some straight up racist bullshit. And to make it clear, I'm not the person who likes to speak for other people. But this is one subject where I'm not going to be quiet. Because that's just straight up. I don't need an interpretation. I know that's some racist bullshit. And people have better remember that when they go to the polls. Because that's what true racism looks like. That right there is what it really looks like. Yeah. Yeah, because they're also taking advantage in the back. Yep. And that's all the way around. Exploit them, talk down to them, and make wild assumptions about their culture. Man, if this isn't the death of the Democratic hope, then I don't know what it will be. But this is certainly a doozy of a first step. Be good to yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to everybody out there. Man, you could be a conservative and you could just have love in your heart. You know, you could have a round in the chamber and love in your heart. Copious out.